Welcome back to the returntodaniel.com. It's been quite some time since I've made an update. I've been extremely busy with life, being married, providing for our little family, and I also am getting older. And so I am not always as productive as I used to be when I was younger. So I want to give a quick update on the finishing up this detransition process. For anyone that has never, I have two catheters in, so if I move a little bit, it's because I'm in pain. But they do come out in the first week of September. So if you've never been to returntodaniel.com on YouTube or my website, I'll give you a quick overview of this whole process that I've been through. I'm an XY. I was born biological male, made a horrible mistake by not letting my mental health therapist during the process that you go through to have your genitals removed and cut off. I didn't mention that I've had childhood sexual trauma abuse, and my therapist never investigated it, and I kept my mouth shut about it, probably because I was delusional and I was fear-driven. So I'm 30 years in substance abuse recovery this year, and part of the process of the substance abuse recovery, in one of the steps, is that you make a list of your fears and you inventory your fears. And then I also didn't do, and what this 4-step process is called, I didn't do a fearless and thorough moral inventory of my sex conduct because I was delusional as a 8-year-old boy. So now, I know some people have been very supportive and they said, you didn't have an ideal childhood. Well, I could posit that right now I know there's starving children in Africa that I've had a wonderful childhood compared to them. But anyway, everything is subjective, of course. I made a horrible mistake of living, a double life. I had periods where I really enjoyed being male. I enjoyed the sex when you're young. I lived with women. One was about 7 months, was the longest relationship. And I would throw out all the women's clothes and I would enjoy, being male. And then I always ended up back in this little squirrel cage in my mind. And so the PTSD therapy that I've been doing, because I had some traumas when I was in the military, it has really opened my eyes that if I could have had that therapy before like 2004, when I started the process to have my male genitals removed, I might not have gone down the road I've gone. And the house that we're sitting in is a fairly new built house. It's nothing, modern. I mean, it's very modern because it's new, but it's nothing, extravagant. You've got 2 bedrooms, well, actually 2 bedrooms and my office. So it's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And so we're out in the country and I love it. However, we're paying rent because I cannot afford to buy a house. So that's my reality. So, and part of my problem is that I've spent a fortune, what normal people spend on houses. I spent, first to have my male genitals removed and then second to have them restored. So I'm in the process of working in a business that can hopefully provide for us a house in the future. And we're hoping that can happen. So we're just in God's hands about that. So the process of the detransition. So I highly recommend, if you're a biological male, that you get the best mental health therapy you can find, because I know some of my viewers on returntodaniel.com have told me that my painful, blunt images of some of the skin grafts they've taken from me has prevented them from going and having themselves cut on. So I actually met one of the men in Europe, and so that was kind of made me feel good, that I saved somebody a bunch of pain. And so there's some other people that have written me. And so I want to go ahead and quickly get into after the male genitals were removed in Asia in 2006. It was not long after I sank into a real big depression. And so then I lived with the female genitals. I can never be a female because it's just impossible, because I have XY. And so I started the process. What happened was I was 9.5 years into living in female body parts. And I remember crying out one morning to God, and I was praying, and 2 days after a birthday in my 50s, and I was praying, and I says, God, help me. And I got zapped. And that zap was the Spirit of God just started a conversation with me, just like you and I are having a conversation right now. Of course, it is one-sided. I'm doing all the speaking, and you're doing all the listening. And so I heard God telling me, I made you a male, turn around and go back to your male God-given identity. And I started shaking. Because I knew how hard it was to do the other one. I mean, when I went to people and started telling them, like my employer, because I had a real masculine job and all this other stuff, they were shocked. You want to do what? Because nobody could understand. I get all my fluids in earlier in the day because I don't want to have to get up with those, what do you call them, catheter bags all night long. So I emailed my pastor, and I wrote some friends, and I called some people. And I said, I just had a super profound spiritual experience. I've got to go back to living in the male identity. I've got to quit walking around trying to be this little feminine thing out there in society. And so, the very first thing, and I've got a 12 steps to detransition for males. I've got a blog post about that at returntodaniel.com. And so the very first thing is you need to go get your hair cut, because once you get your hair cut off, man, it's amazing what starts happening in your mind. You're, oh gosh, I played Little League baseball. That wasn't my course, but it might have been yours. My mother was, she died from alcoholism, and she put a whole bunch of fears in me. And one of them was she wasn't going to let me play Little League baseball. But in my recovery, I've played senior softball a couple of seasons. I haven't been able to the past two because of circumstances. We've moved away from that area, but I'll probably get back into it if I can find it locally here. And so I started contacting surgeons in the US. Please help me get my male genitals back. And nobody wanted to touch me. That's just a sad state of affairs. If they're going to take boys' body parts off and put female body parts on, they need to be able to do the same thing and rebuild little boys that have made a horrible mistake like me. And so I did find a surgeon in Europe that was going to work with me. And so the very first time I went there in 2018, it was a big disappointment, because I was just so thankful that he had responded to me and invited me over. And so we interviewed, and then they took some blood from me, and they said, oh, your liver is a little bit damaged. And so On the side of caution, the anesthesiologist said, hey, I'm just not comfortable. And then they soon discovered that what they can do with cases like mine, where the liver is not very strong. And part of my 30 years in being in recovery from substance abuse, I did all that damage to myself. So my liver is still not perfect. I have to get checkups every now and then. But I have done quite a bit in the line of I drink only pure water for 30 years, and I take some really, really powerful natural medicines, and that has really firmed up my liver, increased my white blood cell count, which is your immune system. And so the past 2 surgeries I've had 5 in total. I haven't had to have any blood plasma, so praise God for that. And that as I've gotten older, okay? So, but the very first surgery that they finally did do, they said, hey, what we're gonna do, and I had to make arrangements to pay for a medevac to Germany from Eastern Europe to get me to a military hospital for that very first surgery. And so I did everything they asked me to do. They gave me blood plasma before that very first surgery. It was called a metoidioplasty with scrotum implants. So they closed up the vaginal canal that was formed when I had the male to female surgery in Asia. And then they put the scrotum implants. I felt so much better because at that point, I had been married to my wife for a year and about 5 months. And I wanted to get closer to her, and so she's a saint. I got married in May of 2019. I believe that was all God's grace too, because I needed somebody to help me, because nowadays hospitals require you to have somebody to sign you in and out. And then a year later, October 2021, this is all during the pandemic. I had to pay a fortune because I didn't take COVID shots. My wife took them and she was able to get through, and we didn't have to pay a whole bunch of money to prove that she didn't have COVID. But anyway, I got the phalloplasty. The surgeon rolled a tube. And so he took this skin from below my belly button, and then he took a skin graft from my thigh, and then that's what attached the phallus. And so it's not anything like my God-given penis that I used to have, but it is so much better than not having a penis. And so then we started with the urethra, because the urethra hookup on somebody like a detransition, male to female, back to male, is a long, complicated process. And so I went back in April of 2022, and I paid a whole bunch more money. I mean, this has been very expensive. And I had the urethra advanced a little bit more, because the goal, of course, is to be able to pee out of the tip of your penis. And so I have been able to stand and void peeing ever since that time. I could have earlier when they did the metoidioplasty, but I didn't realize it. So I sat down for 2 years longer than I really needed to. But anyway, so last year in November of 2023 was the first time we had surgery in the United States, and he was able to build a urethral plate onto the bottom side of my penis. And so this was to get the skin ready to do a tube for the urethra. And so I've just returned the first part of this week that I'm recording this from the place where I had this done in the United States, and they've done the hookup. So my urethra is now coming out, not all the way at the tip of the penis, but further than it was. thank God, because now if you invite me to come to your house, hopefully I won't spray pee-pee, when I pull my penis out. So anyway, I think I am going to be, when they pull the catheters out of me in the first week of September, got one catheter that is suprapubic. In other words, it's in my bladder, direct from my bladder, and it's painful. And then I've got another one coming out of the urethra. And so that'll be the last one that gets pulled. And so I'm forever grateful for this process that I only now need to wait in about February of 2025. Lord willing, if I'm still alive, I will get the little implant on the top part of my penis and I'll be fully functional. And that should be sometime next summer. That could be all healed up and I can function as a male normally again. So that's like 19 years because that surgery was 2006. Wow. So my talking points, people are going to do what they're going to do. Is there a takeaway here? Yes. Get mental health therapy. Don't live in delusion, because man, when they start cutting on your urethra, all kinds of things can happen. I know one person that is a lot taller than me. I'm 6 foot, but this person was like 6'6", and they had this surgery and they were older. And they were in the hospital for a long time because the vaginal canal, when they went and made the penetration, it went all the way to this person's anus. And so there's just so many horror stories. I mean, I've been through so much pain in all of this process. I'm in pain right now. It's not horrible pain like as severe as when I had the metoidioplasty and the phalloplasty, but I'm in pain. And so this is nothing to sneeze at. We're going to have a tsunami of people that say, you transitioned me when I was 6 years old and I want to be my biological gender now. And so, this is going to be a nightmare. So this is some serious stuff. The biblical thing about this is that God created male and female. And I knew that. I had read that, but I was delusional. I was sick in the head. And I was like, but I'm different. And the reality is no, I'm not different. I'm a biological male. God created me a male, and here I am living as a male, happily married. And boy, I tell you, it's been the biggest learning curve in my life to get out of self and serve my wife. So God bless you, my friends. The reason that I've been so busy is that I've been living life. And so I will do my best to get a little bit more proactive on comments. So thank you and God bless you. And please get some psychological therapy. Don't get yourself cut. Bye for now.